Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for joining in today. We just wanted to go over Maptician and our Integrate Talks series. We're excited to have everybody on board today, and thank you for taking the time. In these times, having this application and what we've seen with our customers is this has been a very useful tool in regards to being able to implement people coming back to their office safely, and being able to give them some confidence in returning to the office. And it's more so for the employees, but also for the people who are responsible for bringing people back, as it's not an easy task right now. So there's never been tools or anything like this to make it easy to be able to get everyone back into the office. So this is where Maptician comes into place. And so quickly, what I wanted to do is just thank everyone for the time again, but also introduce Integrate first, who we are and what we do. We're a managed print services organization. We help companies manage all their print devices on a cost per page basis. You know, from your small desktops to your home office, a lot of organizations now are people are working from home, people are printing from home, and it's hard for them to manage. So please reach out to your Integrate rep, and we'd be very honored to be able to talk to you about that as well. And then what I'd like to do is pass the torch over to John and to Nick, who are here from Maptician. I'll let them introduce themselves. And we are going to be recording this, so if you do have questions throughout the term, please send them out. We'll answer them as we go. We want to keep this an interactive conversation and go from there. So from that, I'll pass it on to John and go from there. Thank you very much for joining.
Great. Thanks, JP. I appreciate it. And thank you for everybody who was able to join today. So really what we wanted to do today, and Nick Eric, a co-founder of Maptician, along with myself, and our president and chief software architect, really what we wanted to do is just discuss a little bit about what we're hearing across the companies we're speaking with, and we've spoken to a lot of companies in the last 60 days. Just really around this topic, and share a little bit about what we're hearing, and then a bit about Maptician and how it as a workplace management tool, cloud-based workplace management tool, is helping a number of companies to really help to navigate and streamline that return to office. And we'll leave some time at the end for questions. So just for the sake of time, I'll go ahead and jump right in, and then we'll hit a couple of slides here, and then Nick will just really show the applications. We can show you what it's capable of. So really, as we think about, and really as we have conversation after conversation, we've probably spoken to 30 to 50 different companies, mostly leadership, I would say, kind of split across, you know, HR leadership, who we talk to a lot, facilities and operations type leaders, and then also really just overall kind of executive team. But you know, the priorities really are the same across the board, and I kind of broke this up into 4 of these topic areas we see. So the first one is really just priorities. Number one, as you probably aren't surprised, health and safety of my employees. That has always been the number one thing that they're concerned about. How do I make sure my office is set up to allow them to return? How do I figure out where my highest areas of risk are? And then really, how do I respond accordingly? So the underlying goal there is I need my employees, we need our employees to be able to feel comfortable and really know, and hopefully in a visual way, that we've taken steps as a leadership team to create an environment that is different than it was when they left and when we went to shelter in place, but that is one that we're really trying to make an effective work environment, but also a safe work environment. And give us an ability to communicate that to them effectively. So from a timing perspective, we've really heard across the board that some people really say, hey, we're starting we have some customers who have already started the return now. We have some who say to us, well, we never really closed our office completely. And they're back at 50 or 60%, which I think that's probably rare, but we have heard that. We're hearing a lot of, we were thinking about July, but now we're moving to more August and September because of the, recently in the news, some of the spikes that are occurring. So they're pulling back a little bit on that timing. Others we've heard, especially some of the companies out in California and other areas, some companies have said right now we're looking at potentially even January. We don't hear that as much, but we have heard that.
No, and John, and then in Canada and in Ontario, we're actually all going to be going back. It looks like from a lot of the organizations that we're talking to, it looks like it's in September. It's going to kind of coincide with the kids going back to school. As you know, we're down to only 100 in Ontario a day, or like 100, just over 100 new cases a day. So, it is definitely getting better here. So I think we're going to be a little bit more ahead of the U.S. I think with a slower return, but going back. So that's why this is perfect timing.
Great. All right. And that's our thought as well. And the sooner we can get visibility to the office to clients, we find the more they like that, really, because they have time to really assess options and put plans in place. Especially if we're going to do a rollout to employee base, to do that well, it's just something you want to play in those communications, which we help companies with because we've done it a few times, and so we can kind of guide them in that. And hey, here's how some other organizations have kind of positioned this and rolled it out, and provide some templates, as part of that engagement if that's of interest. The return, bottom left, return strategy and approach. I'd say it sort of falls into a couple of areas. One is what I'd call more of a sign-up approach, where the return is kind of an open, hey, whatever, for now, if you feel like coming back, you can, but you don't have to. But if you do, we want you to sign up, right? And those companies are working to they're working to try to limit a maximum occupancy, within the office on any given day or week, unless they've taken appropriate measures internally where they feel they have it covered, and could seat in their normal seating and could hold up to 100%, although nobody's getting 100%. And then the other one is really more of a scheduled basis. Now, on the sign-up ones, in addition to overall capacity, the other big challenge is if you do have seats that are close together, too close, right, for current conditions, then it's not just about, we'll limit it at 20 or 25% sign-up. Because a whole other issue is, well, what if the 20 or 25% of people who sign up are all clustered together? Well, that's going to create a risk situation. And so really that's where we also try to help to not only give them that piece, but also the piece of, right, but we can't have everybody sitting on top of each other. And so that really leads us to that scheduled approach, which is more, hey, let's take a proactive approach. Let's split our company up or our teams into these groups. Let's say, hey, we're going to socially distance these groups so that when they come back in on either a defined schedule or kind of give them some more flexibility, we're going to let them come back in on that. And we know they're going to be pre-socially distanced, and some things like that. So we have one client who's doing kind of a crawl, walk, run approach. They've created 3 different colored-based groups. One group is Tuesdays and Thursdays, first, third, and fifth week of the month. The other group is Tuesdays and Thursdays, second and fourth week of the month. So you can see that's their phase 1. So that's an approach that will give them this ability to sort of ease people back in, but in a controlled, organized manner where they know who's coming in, of course, unless they're high risk, right? But it does give them an ability to start getting people back into the office and manage against a top line occupancy limit that they want to set, and also be confident that those individuals will be seated in a socially distanced manner, returning to their own seats. Most customers and companies want to have people return to their own seats if there were seats available for them pre-COVID lockdown. So, the last one, just really why the variance. Obviously, there's corporate policies in place. There's a variance across local and national guidelines. Even within a city, certain cities could have different guidelines about percent occupancy. So what we're really trying to provide with Maptician is a very flexible platform that allows companies to adjust as needed, even on a location by location basis. So really with that first part, hopefully that was useful and helpful as you're thinking through this. So really, what is Maptician Flex? So Maptician Flex is really, our goal is to help companies to plan, communicate, return, and then optimize their space. So really the plan and communicate and return is really that 1 and 2 on the right here, just to have a safe, organized, planned reopening. not have people try to manage this through spreadsheets and PDF files of floor plans. Very difficult. And then really that third, which is a little bit farther down, to say, hey, how could we take advantage of the fact that we do have increased and enhanced capabilities that we've, in many cases, most cases, invested a lot of money into to help our employees be able to work effectively from home. So how can we now, longer term, think to capitalize on that really to the benefit of the company? And we realize that's not a right now thing, but Maptician does provide that flexible foundation that really does allow the unlocking of cost savings and cost reduction around space in a very planned and organized way. So here's just a few of the feature areas of those. I will not dive into these, but it really, we try to cover the board, and many of these came from just conversation after conversation with companies on what they were looking for. So really, we'll focus today's demo sort of on these 4 areas, which is really about that return of the social distancing analysis. So you can get your pre-COVID plan, which we help most companies just create for them, a part of our service offering, and be able to do that and assess, and then be able to from there have those there. So okay. So JP, just a checkpoint, or Nick, are we on the Flex feature summary? Are we on that slide?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
Got it. Okay, well, I'm going to hand it over to Nick, and Nick is going to go ahead and be able to demo the application. JP, any questions before we jump into that?
No, I think not so far, but I think hitting these 3 things. I think the biggest thing is the social distancing and understanding what that's going to look like. And Nick is going to share that with you today. In the application, they actually have circles around the map, which is pretty cool. And then also the staggered approach in regards to being able to download through any application through a CSV file or an Excel file, getting it into Maptician, and then being able to schedule it and not having to go onesie twosie through your list. It can be pretty cumbersome. So it's a fairly significant application. So I'm excited to go through it with Nick.
Great.
Okay, thank you. John, can you confirm that you're seeing my screen here?
I am.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. And as you can imagine, this is Maptician. And what you're looking at right now is a bit of a landing page. And so this page in particular is really what a typical user might see logging into Maptician just at the start of the day. So this isn't an administrative view. This is something that would be more geared towards, we just call them the office occupants. And it's broken into these dashboard widgets, which we've got, I think, about 20 of them at this point. But one of them, just to kind of initially mention, is the bulletin. So we do try to give employees access not just to COVID-related information, but to really all sorts of useful things, kind of scoped to their office or their department. So here we've got just a bit of an announcement. We've got a new person joining us, and then obviously the our name is Maptician, so maps are really the sort of the central focus of the application. So you can see a little bit of a thumbnail version of sort of the map that we're going to be working with today. And right now it's essentially an empty map, kind of hovering over this unoccupied little circle. You can see we don't have anyone there presently. So I'm going to jump over to the map editor and load up the map in that mode. And it's probably worth noting that Maptician is, we've been building this for north of 3 years now, so this is not a new application. And at its core is a custom mapping engine that we built specifically for this purpose. And so we have a lot of flexibility and control over what types of things can show up on the map, and hopefully it's pretty apparent that we're able to respond pretty quickly in terms of features and visualizations. So probably one of the first things to show is just very simply, we have these points of interest, hand sanitizer, temperature check stations that we can sort of drag onto the map, drag around, and we have a pretty significant list of those, but we've got certainly some that are very centered on the current environment. And then in addition to that, we have also some abilities to kind of mark up the map for essentially allowing employees to see a little bit of an operational plan. So here we just did a kind of a quick and dirty one-way walkway type approach to say, okay, to avoid people passing each other in the hallway, we're going to switch some of these things to single direction and kind of map out the flow in that sense. So I'm not going to go too deeply into that process, but it's something that we can provide. I think John mentioned and JP mentioned probably the most important part or first step of the whole process is the kind of the new spacing requirements. And so you'll probably have guessed that these little person icons represent essentially places where individuals can sit. So we're just going to go ahead and select all of our seats and enable social distancing. And so here you can see that we have just kind of drawn a little over a 2 meter circle around each person. Actually, that was set to 7 feet from kind of US standards, but let's just go ahead and make that 2 meters because I think we're probably working in metric here. So you can see from the red circles that whenever someone is sort of within this range, or whenever one of these seats is sort of in a danger zone relative to another seat, it kind of shades red. And it's probably also worth noting, as you can probably tell from the offices, these circles are wall aware and kind of architectural object aware. So it doesn't register people in adjacent rooms as being dangerous to one another. So that's going to be a pretty important part of the overall process, is we're not kind of giving you false positives as far as where some of these risks occur.
Sorry, Nick, can I just jump in here? So one of the things, as we've been having a lot of demos with a lot of our customers, people have mentioned many times, one of the biggest things that they like is that their employees and their staff are going to be able to kind of reference what that looks like and what that distance looks like, because it's scalable. So it's correct scale, so that they can actually see, okay, from here to that office is 6. I know I now have to stay this far away from somebody. So they found that to be one of a huge factor in this, and it really helped them and their employees be able to keep those distances between each other. So sorry.
Oh no, thank you. And it's probably also worth saying, everything here is built and live rendered by Maptician. So everything here can be edited on the fly, and we have the ability to really do all sorts of customization. We've got, as far as these seats go, by default they are assignable. So that's kind of a traditional, one person always assigned to their seat, expected to be in the office more or less 5 days a week. We also have a built-in reservation system, so you can make a seat hoteling or reservable by individuals, and we'll go into that a little bit more later. But our latest addition to options is flex seating, and essentially, I think John mentioned this a little bit, is it's a way to establish a fixed schedule where people would come in on some type of rotating basis with the goal of essentially reducing the overall occupancy or density of an office, but without doing any changes to your layout or really anything complicated like that. So it allows people to kind of come in and out on kind of alternating schedules, and hopefully reduce some of the overall risk of both transmission and just kind of best practices. So what we're going to do here real quick is to select all of our seats and make them all flex. And we're just going to kind of really focus on this corner up here, just to try to keep things moving along. But we're also going to show a little bit of the reservation side. So we are going to basically turn these 3 seats right here into sort of a reservable pod. So this will allow people who may not be scheduled for a given day to kind of come in and self-reserve, and we know that they're going to be sort of pre-socially distanced. So we made our changes. We've got a flex schedules. We're going to close out of the editor and move on to the assignments manager. And this is really where a lot of the hard work or the heavy lifting, the magic occurs. And and so this is where we make the seat assignments and basically associate people and seats with schedules. And so we have an occupant list here on this tab. And so this gives us all of our people basically assigned to this office. And one of the things we can do is we can sort and filter by, say, department. So right now we're going to be focused on the development department. And so we've sort of kind of pre-created 3 different schedules here, one of them being orange team, and that's sort of everyone's going to be in the office at all times. A blue team, which is 1 week on, 1 week off, with this week being the on week, and then red team, which is the 1 week on, 1 week off, with next week being the on week. And so we're just going to do a very, very quick setting up essentially the private offices as low risk, and these people have the opportunity to come in any day that they want. So we're just basically associating this the schedule template with these seats. Now for the higher density cubicle areas, we're going to do a bit of a sort of a checkerboard pattern, and this typically works in most situations to establish sufficient distancing between locations. And so once again, trying to keep this reasonably quick here. So we'll probably only just fill in a few of these, but kind of wanted to show a little bit of how easy this is to start getting people assigned to seats. So we're going to just start dragging and dropping people onto locations. And remember, these top people are folks who can come in or are expected to come in every day. Now that may not be ideal if you're trying to manage towards a maximum occupancy, but it is an option with the system. And so that was basically assigning people into that all the time schedule. And then we've got a couple of different ways to schedule people into kind of the other seats. If we had multiple shifts per schedule, we could probably do a little bit more complicated assignments, but we're just going to start dragging individuals into seats here.
And so, yeah, and I think the thing with this is that it makes it just so much easier to plan this out than having to go around with a drawing on your on a clipboard, and then having to run around and trying to do this manually isn't the easiest thing. Now, the other thing, and I've talked to this when we've talked to a lot of other companies, is the liability aspect of this. So if anything were to happen, and I guess Nick will get into the contact tracing and what that's going to look like, but John, there's huge credibility with this for 2 things, right? One is it makes the employees feel a lot more comfortable that you've actually invested something they can see on a daily basis, not only from their desktop, but also from their mobile device. And I know, Nick, I'm just jumping ahead, but while you're kind of doing that, like this is just it's huge.
It does. It really provides them with that. You saw as Nick was doing that, the system's smart enough and intelligent from a standpoint of knowing that since those are on alternating days, there's not a conflict, as he's showing, even here on this floor plan. So this is the view that an employee will be able to have on their phone or on their desktop and really see not only that their seat is now, some things have changed, meaning their neighbors, their immediate neighbors, are not on the same shift as them, and they can also see who is in and who's going to be in the office potentially or likely the same time they are. Nick will kind of show that the mobile side of this as well. But you're exactly right, JP. That's really kind of what it's all about, is that visibility and then the ability to take different approaches in different offices. And different people, different groups. It really does provide a great deal of flexibility.
Right.
And so, we're in a viewer mode, and we got there, and there's a bunch of ways to get into the viewer, but the one we took was just clicking on this location of that little dashboard widget. So it zooms into that spot on the map, and now you can see essentially we've got what the office would look like today based off the assignments that we made. And you can click on these individual seats, get information about the people, as well as some information about the schedule. So here you can see that that Jimmy is here all week, and this little red line here represents kind of the current date and time. And so we know that the people, these red seats, the red team next to him is currently not active, but we can look and see information about that. So the schedule's red team, next person is Mr. Reginald Jones. And so we can figure out when he's going to be in the office next. And we can have a lot more complicated schedules here, but we just wanted to keep this fairly quick. And then we've got a pretty good search and sort mechanism here. So we can find and zoom to individuals and then get direct access to their schedules. But one of the cool features here is, right now you can see from this upper right-hand corner, we're in sort of today, July 9th, around noonish type view. But if we wanted to say, okay, who's going to be in, maybe, next week, Tuesday, same time, we can switch the view there, and now we're in basically next week view. And now we've got our red team, which is now currently active. So we've got the ability to basically view the map as though any given time we're kind of based on reservations, based off of schedules. So it gets you the ability to look for time. So we're going to reset to the current time. And the other thing we wanted to show is just a little bit on the reservation system. And we've got sort of a couple different options here. One is just quick button reserved for today. And you can see that now you can see my smiling face on that seat. Or we can go into the calendar mode and just do a sort of a click and drag type approach. And here's another reservation for me. And
I think that's huge, because a lot of people are going to be doing reservations moving forward. There's going to be a lot of hoteling offices from speaking to a lot of companies, and that's kind of going to be the direction, especially more so on the sales side. The sales side, they always want the people to be out and not in the office, but when they do need to come to the office, that's where they're going to be sitting most likely. And also they're going to be, and Nick will show us again, but you also have access through that on your mobile device as well, which is amazing.
Exactly, JP. One of the benefits of the pre-socially distanced hoteling spots is that it really narrows down the seats that need to be potentially cleaned nightly or on some schedule versus a much larger area, and you're not, you'd have to really do some research and looking back on which seats need to be cleaned, and there's probably a third party doing that. So it does cut down on the number of spots you might have to sanitize and wipe down each night from a hoteling perspective.
And just as a bit of a side note, we do have, in addition to the seat reservations, we have room reservations as well. So here we can see, kind of a pod of conference and meeting rooms, and so we can, similarly, reserve seats or reserve rooms. So.
And Nick, question for you: for those rooms and stuff, can you put in there? And I see it says capacity there. Can you just say we've now put a bunch of people in this room. This room only holds 3 people comfortably.
Absolutely. And actually, we didn't update, I don't think, the capacity on this one, but we have these little token markers that are sort of pre-socially distanced. So this break room here, I think originally we said it was a 16-person capacity room, and so playing around with those, we can say that now it can probably only fit about 4 people for kind of a socially distanced eating type situation. So.
And I know we kind of talked about this now. I don't know if it's something that you guys, I think it's on the next update, but you can reserve like break rooms, and so people can actually reserve stuff like that. Is that?
Oh yeah, any room can be made reservable. It's no extra charge. It can be done, the day that you need it. So we've had clients say, "Hey, I've got a big conference coming up in our office, and we want to." You can do that with seats as well. Basically, change your infrastructure, change your plan based on people visiting or changes that need to be made on the fly.
Or even just the normal people coming in. You don't want, typically everyone goes for lunch at 12 o'clock. You don't want, even if you're at a capacity of 25%, you don't want everyone going into the break room at the same time.
Oh, sure.
So you want to kind of schedule that and make sure that they're safe, right?
Oh, absolutely. Probably the thing to cover now, I know we're certainly burning through the time here. There's a lot to cover, but is the contact tracing. And so, we took a bit of a different approach from, say, Apple or Google. So we're using the information that is essentially gained by having these schedules and reservations in the system. So basically what we're looking at here is in the organizational dashboard. So this is something that only people with pretty high level administrative access would be able to access. We can basically say, I'll kind of pick myself just for the time being. Let's say I tested positive. I reached out to HR or whoever's administering this, saying, here's a situation. They can go in, select me on that list, select a look back period. We've got it set to default to 14 days, but that can be set to any range, backward looking, of course. And then you can pick a sensitivity. So you could say, show me all the people who were in even just the same building at the same times or on the same floor, or to kind of say, let's limit it a little bit more and say, people are either being told to stay within their zones, or we just assume that there's a higher chance of transmission around your immediate neighbors and people who are using some of the same common facilities. And so we've kind of set that, and we'll maybe say a 21-meter radius around any place where I have made a reservation or where I had a seat assignment. And so we're going to do contact tracing here, and that essentially spits out, even just off the information that we did today, this gives us basically a list of folks who would have been in the office at the same time and categorizes their risk source. So there's actually some repeats here because we made those reservations and we had the assigned seats. And so both of those are treated as essentially separate risk sources. So it really does try to catch everything that we have visibility into, and then it sorts by distance and provides kind of a time-bounded potential contact. And just because I'm sure we've got folks thinking in terms of privacy and health information, we don't mark anyone as having COVID or anything. We don't store any medical information. We don't even track who's had this report run on them. So really this is the step one in the process of either printing or exporting this to, say, Excel or some other tool, and then using this as a starting point for a contact tracing process. And one of the upcoming features, it's probably worth noting, is I guess one of the limitations here is we're working on some kind of I guess you could call it non-live data, or at least non-confirmed data. So we're looking at options to be able to allow people to either self-certify that they were in the office, or to integrate some badge swipe data to be able to say, here are the actual potential contact events that are confirmed with kind of third-party or independent data. So that's.
The other thing that we saw though was that the more employees and staff utilize, booking where they're going to be going, whether it is booking the washrooms or booking going to the break room or doing that, the more you're able to understand where they're moving throughout the office. And so, yes. and then also limiting restrictions based on floors. And if you have multiple floors, you don't want your staff going to multiple floors, because then there could be potential exposure to multiple floors. And John, you were telling me a story about that yesterday.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that, and it really speaks to the importance of visibility. So it was a commercial property owner. They own a number of properties across the U.S. And they really just relayed a story to us where one of their tenants that had 3 floors had an individual who had been diagnosed with COVID. They weren't quite sure which floor he sat on. weren't quite sure, didn't have very tight controls about, asking employees to utilize only the break rooms and, for example, the bathrooms on their own floors, and be mindful of that. So, they unfortunately, because of that lack of visibility, ended up needing to do, a full exit of all 3 floors, and then really hire specialist cleaning service to come in. I think the price was around $30,000 US, really to just address that one situation that maybe could have been addressed better with better visibility and a few better policies internally, at least to reduce that cleaning bill from what they encountered.
And the other thing to note is that Maptician is probably one of the leading companies of coming out with this right now. Been highlighted in many articles, but best practices, right? And being able to pick their brain on best practices to help what to do to kind of trace this, what rules to put in place, how to do those things. These guys are the experts, right? And I think that's going to be a huge thing too. So not only is it, again, the software, but again, the experts involved that have been doing this for a lot of other organizations. They've been working with big banks in the U.S. They've also been doing a lot of universities, colleges, architectural firms. So this is, when going through something like this, not a lot of us, for myself, I know everybody here, none of us have gone through this kind of control and this kind of monitoring that you're going to need to do. Make sure that when people are coming back to the office that they're safe, right? And making sure that you're not liable is going to be a big thing. And, God forbid if something were to happen to any of your employees or staff members, having something like this in place gives you, if it were to go to a court or anything like that, it gives you a leg to stand on, saying, these are the precautions that we took. Look at what we asked our employees to do. We had them sign this, we did this, but we also had this application running in the back. And so, for 0 to 100 users for a few $100 a month, it's ease of mind. It makes it very simple and fairly inexpensive. So I don't know, for myself, we use it ourselves here in our office. We have 2 offices ourselves, so we've implemented this. So it's definitely become very handy, and it's a liability thing now moving forward as well, as people come into the office.
Yep. Thanks, JP. We thought we'd just give a quick glance at the employee view from a mobile device. Obviously, we just last week and a half, we rolled out to 500 employees of a client of ours we had landed, and they're all utilizing the mobile app to gain this visibility and confidence. Nick will kind of touch on here real quick.
Yeah. So I think you probably saw initially that there's, and we only have one floor set up right now, but you can have multiple buildings, multiple floors per building, essentially no limit there. And you'd select it there, and you have your live thumbnail. And so you can see actually the reservations that we made, or I think I'd made that one before on the room, but we made that reservation before, and those 2. So they're showing up orange as essentially saying those are mine. And you can see the social distance strings there as well, and a little bit of information about the current office, Wi-Fi, reception, office manager. But then you've got the ability to go in and see a little bit of some information about who's in the office. You can find someone or individuals. So that's my assigned seat there. We can get into my profile information there, contact information, things like that. They can look at my schedule. So here's all the times, really just on an ongoing basis when I would potentially be in the office. And one of the things, other than just finding out your coworker schedules, step 1 is really to figure out when am I supposed to be in the office, or what are my reservations, or what are my all those types of things essentially. So you'd go into this calendar mode. You get a good view of your time a week at a time. And then you can actually click on this little email button there, and basically your Outlook calendar gets updated with whichever type of schedule or meeting or anything like that that's set up in the system. And one other interesting thing here is we have the points of interest. So you can find break rooms, or for this case, let's just kind of take a look at the hand sanitizing stations. And hopefully you can see it. It's a little small, but you can start seeing these little icons pop up saying, here's these hand sanitizing stations. And we can then just kind of click on this little go to button, and it'll get us back into our sort of rich map view, where we can see, here's the station, here's the people, and we can find them, and we can change the time context and do all the things that you can basically do on the desktop application as well as going in and making a reservation either through kind of the same calendar view that we'd seen before, or just kind of a quick button, say, give me this seat for today. Now I've kind of monopolized this this block of cubicles for demonstration purposes, and you can see that's been updated right here real quick.
So I was going to say, so I know it's 11:47. So does anyone have any questions that they want to have, or is there? Please feel free to ask now. We're more than happy to answer any questions. So if you have any questions, please let us know. You can just type it into the box down at the bottom there. There's a Q&A box. You can just put it in there, and we can answer any questions. And if not, then Nick, if there's anything else you wanted to share.
Yeah, actually, just because it does tend to come up a good bit. Let me get back into, well, I guess it's probably worth also saying the mobile view that you're looking at. So Maptician is a progressive web application. So it is to a degree installable on a mobile device, but it technically runs in the browser. The good side there is you don't need to worry about the App Store, and it's a lot easier to control and update. Apart from that, the entire application is, I guess with the exception of creating the map initially, the entire application is touch compatible, and you can load it up on a tablet device and even walk around the office, making seat assignments or checking against the plan. So it's definitely meant to be used on a mobile device pretty frequently. And then on the one thing that always comes up is, well, how do I get the people in there? We've got multiple different routes for that. We've got API imports, we've got CSV imports, and then as far as security goes, we've got a very thorough system that allows you to restrict access, or to essentially customize what different groups of employees can do and what they can access in the system. Since even though we're not touching medically important information, there is certainly sensitive data that's stored here, and so we definitely take security and data privacy very, very seriously.
And that being said, I know we get this question a lot when we've been doing this, is where does this reside, right? Is this a cloud solution? Is this an on-prem solution? How does that work?
Yeah, so we are a fully cloud-based solution. Essentially everything within the application resides on the Amazon Web Services, and we can sort of based on geography, we can set up essentially separate server type environments to make sure, say if you wanted data to stay within the EU or Canada or the US or anything like that, we can set up essentially, or we have set up sort of data geographic specific areas to kind of further help with that process. And we've got some good security information we can share if needed, just to show all the precautions we've taken to harden the application and to comply with various regulations and kind of concerns there.
So Nick and John, I don't know, do you see John? Do you see those questions that are popping up?
I do see. I see the one. I see one question that's popped up.
So they're popping up. So if you want, can you want to read that out and then?
Sure. Yeah, Nick. The first one is, can I export floor plans to have around the office? Additionally, can I export schedules to know who's coming in on what days, and what are my exporting options?
Yeah. So we do. We can export schedules, but really the exporting off the maps itself is very easy and really pretty visually appealing as well. Everything exports in a vectorized form, so you can print it out in a kind of a ledger, or I don't know, kind of the.
So like PDF then.
Oh yeah, PDF. I forget how the A ones move, but yeah, you can print it out. You can set what type of headers export with it, but it's a very good ability to snapshot a map. And then
with pictures of those individuals on that schedule and the green confirmation, although those can be, the circles can be turned off. It is and hidden. That's possible too, depending on how you want the map to display. And then there's also more textual or Excel CSV based exports of seating plans. So you'd have the ability to have that that as well.
Yeah, and John, it was actually good as you mentioned it. Everything on the map is live rendered, so we can, if we wanted to, we can disable the seats. We can take the furniture out. We can get rid of all these things.
Yeah, add everything back except the seats real quick. That's a great point, Nick. I'll mention that we are speaking to some companies and some customers who they're designating areas. For example, maybe the hoteling seats that need nightly cleaning. They're using the icons to do that. They're hiding the seats so that they don't show their employees' names, and then they're exporting this and providing it to their janitorial services contractor, and really using it as a tool to not try to describe something over the phone or provide an out-of-date floor plan to them, but really provide a current state of the environment there. And then we have one other one, Nick, one other question. It just, and I see, you want to mention the security camera there?
Oh yeah, I was just, I enjoy moving that around.
So just some,
like
it can be, there's, one thing, I don't know if we really hit on it or not. We have the ability to create, essentially you can create unlimited scenarios. So you can have a sandbox type environment to make changes to floor plans. When we work with customers, we'll create their pre-COVID floor plan. We'll save that off for them and archive it, and then create a new post-COVID floor plan that may just be used for a period of time. So there's a number of different things that can be done there. So Nick, the next question was, how long does it usually take to get on board with the Maptician system, and generally what do you need? Great question. So, if we're depending on the size, and what we do is work with customers to prioritize that. But let's say if a company had, say, 100,000 square feet over 4 floors in a building, we can get those first floor or 2 out in a matter of a couple of weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. The floor plans themselves can really be turned around on a per floor plan basis within days. It's something that we've gotten very good at getting done. We've got a significant team that moves through those very quickly. And for that, what do we need? Typically, most commonly, we get a vectorized PDF or an AutoCAD DWG file that displays both the inner and the outer walls, and then the modular furniture. So typically, that's sometimes called a furniture plan that the group that put the furniture in would have provided. But we've taken everything from a scanned blueprint from 1988, I think, up through a very, we can pretty much take anything, although better files lets us go a little bit faster. But it's really easy. And then, like Nick said, for the employee side of it, we typically will just start with an export from whatever system of record the client has. First name, last name, email address is the minimum, but obviously additional contact information can be provided that can help, but it can be added later. So it can be a very fast process, certainly up and running with the initial office and floor plans within 2 weeks.
And so probably it's, you said, there's some integration options here in terms of single sign-on, in terms of integration with, say, Active Directory to populate the employee list, but those aren't required. Really, there's a kind of a bare minimum configuration that can be done, really in a few days, and it does not need to touch any external systems. It doesn't have any dependencies. So just an employee list and a PDF file are really all we need to get someone started really, really quickly. And the further complexity can be added down the road, or kind of depending on each company's preference on IT infrastructure. So this does not need a big effort from a IT department. Really, the bare minimum doesn't require them at all, other than perhaps a checkpoint to make sure everything's square with them from a security side.
Yeah, we don't wait till everything is done to start. So we'll work with a customer and really start those discussions on how they would like to implement it. We'll get those first floor plans together and really start working on those as the other ones are being built out, depending on how many. So we're interacting with our customers very, very rapidly after they say they'd like to move forward.
So just on that note, you know, as this happens, you know, Maptician is starting, they're getting very busy. So the sooner anyone is interested, the better, because as September, especially in the Ontario area and across Canada, as businesses are opening, the sooner the better, just so that you can have everything ready for September time, which is why we wanted to have the conversation now with everyone. Mm-hmm. Because you know, as anything, people get busy and then it gets pushed over. So we want to make sure that you know, we work very closely with Maptician, and they've told us that they would prioritize you know, the people that we're going to be bringing on, and they're going to get them ahead of time to make sure that they're able to get up and running. So for, again, you know, for depending on the size and scope, it could be a few $100s a month, all the way to, you know, not that, it's not even that much. If you have a few hundred, it's still you know, under that $1,000 mark. So this is something that is a huge benefit to you. What is a few $100s to make sure that your employees feel safe heading back to the office, ease of mind, and also to be able to protect the organization from any wrongdoing or negligence with people going back. We've got to all be careful with that. Unfortunately, we've got to keep that in mind. So, you know, having this is going to help you prove it to even to your employees, the people who may not feel comfortable going back to the office. This may help some people feel more comfortable, and
yeah,
a lot of people that we talk to, this gives them the warm and fuzzies to be able to go back to the office, because you've taken the precautions to do this.
Yeah, that's a great point. Really, it is. And what we do find is that, you know, I think our customers, once they get visibility to the floor plans, I don't think they realized how beneficial it was going to be to them. So I would say, err on the side of giving yourself more time. It's probably less about how much time it takes us to get the floor plans in and up and running, and more about, does an organization want to be rushed to put plans in place, or do they want to have, you know, ample time ahead of the reopen phase 1, or however they're going to do it, but to have ample time to really assess different approaches, and to, you know, work to communicate those with leadership within the company, and really arrive at something versus being rushed. So I guess that would be my only, from the ones that we've done, those that have given themselves a little bit more time, it seems to go a little bit smoother for them after we, you know, hand off that system. I mean, we help and we're with them the whole time anyway, but obviously if they have a little bit more time, that has been a positive thing.
So everyone, it's a minute to 12, so we don't want to monopolize any more of your time today. So we'd like to thank everyone for joining us on the call. If you do have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to your Integrate consultant. We'd be more than happy to schedule a demo, and then schedule some pricing, and being able to have a one-on-one conversation with Nick and John to go over options and what it can do to help you guys return to the office safely, and more so make the employees feel very safe going back. So we'd like to thank everyone for their time. Thank you very much, and we look forward to working with everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.